halls of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Javon Austin.
But Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels feared to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
And now recorded from the CRW studios in Almost Heaven, West Virginia, it's the Country Roads webcast with your host, Jordan Cruz.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another episode of the CRW podcast here. As we move through the offseason, we still have plenty of coaching staff news to talk about as more of that is broke. We've got transfer portal movement both out. We know some destinations, some players that have made their decisions elsewhere. We've got the transfers coming in, several of those in the most recent days, and maybe even more of those have come in by the time we put this podcast episode out to you guys and get it uploaded. But it's all good news thus far with the transfer commits, and we'll talk about some players West Virginia is targeting as well. And then towards the tail end, maybe talk a little WVU hoops as well. But joining me to help me do all that, of course, my great co-host, we've got Steven.
What's going on, everybody?
And Bradley.
Where?
Hey, he looks
The new
a
and
little
improved
different. Something's missing.
Yeah. I told the fellas, I said, turn 30 this year, getting married, go into it all clean and make it look nice, but decided to keep the mustache. It's grown on me the last couple of days. I can say very firmly that it has not grown on my fiance.
I've had the same issue anytime I've tried to shave my beard and just go like goatee or anything. My wife's like, no, I like the beard, so it's like the beard ends up coming back eventually.
See, I'm the wife in my scenario because I've tried to shave my beard a couple times, and each time I'm like, what is that? I don't know. I can't do it. I don't know if it's just the difference in – because I've had facial hair, I mean, pretty much consistently since I could grow it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, I don't know if it's just like it's just too much of a drastic change, but I don't know. You pull it off.
Yeah.
You pull it off better than I could.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Yeah, 2025 is the year to be alive. So, and got a new head football coach. Got a lot of new coaches.
That's right.
Yep.
Hey, that's a good point. This is the first podcast episode we'll be releasing in 2025 as well. Good point there. So Happy New Year to everybody out there. And I guess before we get into details of, coaches, transfers, all that, just opening thoughts, guys. I mean, how you guys feeling about the state of things, whether it be football, basketball, whether it was, your personal time through the holidays, just how we doing? How you been feeling, Steven?
I can't help but feel ecstatic about the direction of West Virginia sports right now. And, I'm a lot of times guilty of, I guess, wearing my blue and gold glasses too much and kind of giving the credit to where it's not really earned or deserved yet in some spots. I think, if you've watched our podcast a long time, well, most notably, we're going to talk about here in a little bit our season prediction roundtable we did for this past football season, and that'll show you just how much those blue and gold get. Yeah, how much those blue and gold glasses get worn on a consistent basis. But with that being said, I think that it's hard not to, after what we've seen out of the basketball program, just that, hard not to be excited over stuff like that. And I said early on in the year they were going to be good from the way they looked, but they've even surpassed what I thought they could do just early on in this Big 12 conference. So excited about that. Obviously excited about the direction of the football team and all of the announcements that we've gotten from that. It definitely feels like the trajectory is heading way, way up. That trajectory is steep right now, and it's going up. So it's really excited.
It is. It's exciting times, and it feels like there's good vibes all around. As you mentioned, the basketball team we'll talk more about in a bit, and the women's basketball team as well. Both of those performing really well, and just the vibes around the football program are at a, probably the highest point they've been in quite some time. So I'm super happy about that and everything going on in regards to that, of course, you guys know I wanted Rich Rod to be the hire, so I was happy with the way that went. But Brad, what about you? How you been feeling? How you been? Your holidays? How were they? And moving into the new year, you feeling good about WVU and such?
Yeah, holidays were great. So it was good times. Good times. Lots of time with the family, which is what you really want around these times, and that's kind of hard to get sometimes when you're working in hotels. So. But, yeah, when it comes to athletics, basketball team, it looked great, man. It's been enjoyable to watch them. It's been the first time, I would say, in probably 3 to 4 years that I find myself consistently drawn to want to watch the basketball games, if I'm being honest. It used to be just like a convenience if it was on. Now it's more, I want to make time to watch these games and see how the guys do because they're all playing really, really great. And I think that's a callback to, like, feelings that I had a long time ago. I think when Bob Huggins left, I fiddled around. That was the last time I wrote a little article, and it was talking about being bigger than Bob Huggins. That it was like, I think that Mountaineer basketball is a bit, though Bob Huggins was a great ambassador of Mountaineer basketball, I felt like it transcended him, and like there's something really special there where like that it's whoever, if you get somebody in there that could fill that role, that it could be a really strong job and a really great program, and like Darian DeVries is just like taking off with that. Yeah. And so it's like made it exciting to watch again. And, like, the guys are exciting to watch again. Like, they're getting into it. They're getting the fans into it. And you look at a team that was already so short-handed, and then now they've gone down 2 starters. A couple, Tucker's looking like he's going to be out for a while. And then, being down another hand for a bit, you're, like, still coming through and finding ways to win tough games in the Big 12 convincingly. And that's impressive, So that's got me super excited for Mountaineer basketball. I'm talking about going up and watching a basketball game, trying to find some time to go up there and travel to go watch a basketball game, which I've not done since I've left.
Shoot, man, come on come 2 weeks from yesterday. Go to the game on the 18th, the Iowa State game. It's Jerry West Day. That's going to be a fun time.
That's what Cheyenne was looking at, but it's like I might be able to swing that. I say we'll see. I think we might have something going on.
I think Iowa State's like number 2 or 3 right now too. So
that's what she's looking at. If you end up making it, Brad, y'all got to do a CRW meetup or something with Stephen being up there. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Man. Yeah. If you do decide to, we should do that.
I mean, absolutely, and that's my kind of thing. I always go to the big games. I went to the Penn State game. I went to the Pitt games. Like, I always seem to just, like, blow my load on a really nice game. So,
well, man, I think we give you some leeway.
The tickets are cheaper. They're like $27. So,
when you move, when you have to move away for work, man, it's kind of hard to get back for all the games. So, it's understandable in your case, man.
Yeah, I think we're trying to make it back though. But to football, though, I will say that I'm still a bit more hesitant. I became a fan, like, my first year that I could say that I actually, like, watched Mountaineer football, I think was 2007, 2008, right, the Pitt game. 2007, 2008. I was going to miss it. 2006, 2007, 2008 was literally, like, my first year that I can remember watching Mountaineer football. And so the visceral reaction from, like, that being a fan, like, the first time I felt like a fan of a team, and, like, that being it, like, I really loathed Rich Rod for a long time. And I think that was because I was young and impressionable, right, which we all were, and we all felt feelings. But I still don't know if I'm convinced that, like, he's won here before, but can he do it again? I don't know. Like, and I don't know if that's necessarily his fault or if it's, West Virginia's and the money's fault. I just don't know where that world's going to shake out in sports yet. And so I don't know if that's going to be on him, but I just don't know. I'm still a bit more hesitant about that. I got a bit more to be convinced.
So you're still in wait and see mode, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted Rich Rod to be hired. I think he was the best guy for the position. I think they hired absolutely the guy they should have, and I think that that's because he brought in money, and I think that that's where Neil Brown was going to fail. Nobody was going to give Neil Brown money. It wasn't going to happen, and so they said, okay, bring in Rich Rod. We'll give you money now, and that's what you desperately need. And so now it's.
And speaking of that money, that's a great transition into talking a little bit about that, because that money has been there, even for the coaching staff. It's more by far, double the money that Neil Brown had for his assistants, and we started to see some of that pay off. We started to see the staff come out. We've had some official announcements. Of course, the big one that was officially announced was defensive coordinator Zach Alley, getting him from the SEC, from Oklahoma to come over. Young guy, only 31 years old. So, younger than me. And definitely, doing a lot with his coaching career already in his short stint, and really had a great defense there at Oklahoma. From the shows I've listened to, when they've talked about it, they thought it was their best defense in like 15 years with his first year there calling the plays, and had great success at ULM and Jack State, where he, of course, met up with Rich Rod there previously. I think that's a really big hire that I'm super excited about. We've had that one officially. Then we've also had officially announced Chad Scott's return, Blaine Stewart's return, although Chad Scott will be running backs coach, Blaine Stewart will be inside receivers coach. We've had Ryan Garrett officially announced as wide receivers coach coming from Jack State. Michael Niswander as tight ends coach coming from Jack State. The day that we're recording this, Jack Bicknell was finally officially announced as the offensive line coach. We've had William Green announced as the defensive line coach. And then we have the others that have been reported, those being Rod West to coach the cornerbacks, coming over from Appalachian State, and Gabe Franklin to coach the safeties coming over from Boise State. So that's pretty much a lot of the staff that we know. We know a good bit of the support staff now, which includes some familiar faces, Jeff Castile on the defensive side, Noel Devine on the offensive side as an analyst and assistant running backs coach. So I guess that leads me to ask, guys, we pretty much know the most of this staff now. Let's say 90% of this staff is known, even though a lot of it's not official yet. Yeah, just waiting on those announcements. But how are you feeling about how the staff is shaking up in general up to this point, though, Stephen?
Like I said before, I mean, absolutely a phenomenal job by Rich Rodriguez and the rest of this administration for forming this type of a staff. We haven't been shy about how we felt about Zach Alley. Like you said, it's been the best. That was the best defense that they had in 15 years. And if they would have even had a subpar defense for a lot of those years, they would have made a better run in that playoff whenever they made it there. So I think that it speaks volumes to the level that he got them to. So obviously excited about that one. Obviously excited about Noah Devine, just for the obvious reasons that you could mention. So that one's a fun hire. The one most recently for me that I'm kind of excited about that I didn't really know a lot about until you had mentioned it the other day was Rod West, and him being brought in. I had not heard anything about that previously. That was a bit of a surprise, I guess, to me. But the more that I learn about him and the more that I see what kind of job he did down there at Appalachian State, I mean, that's another one that you really can't help but be excited about. And then also you think about like that being in conjunction of that role that that Zach Alley's going to have, although he's going to be, linebackers coach, it's still going to filtrate out to that. And those are going to have to coincide with each other to be able to work. But with everything right now with the coaching staff, I mean, I can't help but be excited. I think the one that I'm not, I wouldn't even say that I'm not excited about it. I would just say that I'm more like, Brad, how Brad feels about Rich Rodriguez and that situation is how I feel about Jeff Bicknell and the offensive line. I'm kind of in wait and see mode, even with such a good resume and with a lot of stops. That's kind of what gives me pause about that is he's got a great resume, but there's a lot on that resume, and that's not always a good thing when you're in the coaching world. So overall
I think
positive.
That to me was overall positive. But to me, I agree with you. That was the most surprising, probably, of the hires that have popped up. I think was Jack Bicknell, because it wasn't just a name that you were hearing for offensive line coach, but like I said, a lot of experience. But you do worry about a lot of 1-year stops here lately in the recent portions of his career. I think a lot of that was due to being on staffs where coaches got fired and just stuff out of his control potentially. So maybe it won't be the case here. But we'll see what happens. I think he could be a good offensive line coach. But as you mentioned there with Zach Alley, I do want to throw in his his official title is assistant head coach, and then he has defensive coordinator and linebackers as well as part of his title. So that's one reason he's able to make as big of a contract as he is. He does get the assistant head coach title here at WVU, probably a little something that sweetened the pot there as the bidding war with Oklahoma at the end. But Brad, what about you? Any thoughts on the staff and how it's shaping up thus far under Rich Rod 2.0 era here?
Yeah, no, I haven't really been able to dive into it a ton, and I've heard, good things about the people that we have picked up, Jeff Castile, things like that have done a stint here, that we've seen them kind of in their product. But what I have heard is that what Zach Alley likes to do is a bit more of an aggressive defense, which is something that I think that we've lacked being in the 12. And I think that's going to be really exciting to see going forward, because in the Big 12, I feel like we hit a point where defensive ends were kind of running things for a while. They were trying to speed up the quarterbacks and kind of increase that flow of speed when we were early in the Big 12, and I feel like that was such a fun brand of football to watch. And so I definitely am excited to see a more aggressive defense than something that's just going to sit back and let people pick us apart. So that's where I get excited, because I think that flows really well into what Rich Rodriguez is trying to do on the offense and just really control the tempo on both sides.
Yeah, and one thing he specialized in that's really exciting, especially compared to where we were with his previous staff, is forcing turnovers. That's kind of been his niche, something he's been really good at, and that's something that we haven't done in a long time here. So that excites you as well, I think.
Gang tackling too. I think we've dealt with the whole arm tackling and kind of like wanting to jolt you into falling down more than the swarming to the ball and multiple. Once the first guy gets there, you see 2 or 3 more. I miss that. I miss that a lot, man. And if you watch Oklahoma's defense, that's a lot of the way that they played this past year was swarming and gang tackling. So I'm most excited for that.
Yeah, I am too. And I should mention as well, Chuck Lilly is being reported to be the new GM at WVU, also coming over from Oklahoma where he was assistant GM. Did want to throw that in there at the tail end there as we talk a little bit about the coaching staff now. But do want to talk a little bit about our season prediction roundtable. Always one of our favorite episodes every year. And then, of course, yeah, I know that's probably how we're feeling is that we don't really want to talk about it with how optimistic we were.
Make sure
like
you
Steve
lead
said
off
earlier.
with the way that we were going into this year. That
we were being
what was portrayed to us? Yeah.
Big bowl win. Garrett Green was great.
Garrett was going to win a Heisman. We're going to beat Penn State, and that was going to be the first to,
his completion rate was going to go up to 65%.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, everyone. I'm sure everyone else, was there too. But August is a little bit a ways ago now. But people may forget how hyped the program was and how optimistic everyone was heading into the season. We weren't the only ones.
Yeah, Pat McAfee rolled into town. You know what I mean?
I think what happened was Pat McAfee was trying to manifest some things in WVU football.
He was absolutely trying to give him a shot.
Yeah, man, give him that motivation. Let him know that people not everybody's counting them out. And they did not use that motivation in the right way. I'm not.
Well, and like I said, had you won those games, had you won those games and capitalized on it, you wouldn't have had such a hard time convincing people to give you money. Right, True. Which is ultimately what screwed you. Had you won big games and shown people that progression and that chance to actually win big games, you probably could have got Ken Kendrick and some other people to give you the kind of money that they're giving Rich Rod now. Yeah. You didn't do it in 6 years.
No
whatever you
concept,
can say.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want to about the first 3, and you had to fire who and X and X and O and O and timeouts and not going for it on 4th and 1. But at the end of the day, you didn't prove that you could win, so they didn't want to give you money. We had it. They weren't going to give it to him, though.
I think that's a great point. I think that the powers that be, the money holders, if you will, the donors, they seen that. They seen the lack of, I don't know. I don't really know the right word. I'm not going to say motivation. Because I don't believe this team's problem was the lack of motivation.
They never gave up throughout the whole year. Yeah,
that's the whole thing that bothers me about that. And I love the hard edge mentality that Rich Rod brings, and I love the mantra and all that. But the thing that makes me so upset about the team in the past is they just assume that everybody was soft on that team, and that just, for me, that simply was not the case. I think more of anything, it was more of a schematic issue. I've said that all season, that it was more coaching than anything. Players are just not being put in the right spots. But like I said, I think that Ken Kendrick and a lot of those people, it's not like Rich Rodriguez is the only person in the money that they're ever going to give money to if it comes to West Virginia. That's not true. It's just the most perfect one that was in this scenario and made the most sense this time. Currently, I do think that Rich Rodriguez is the most perfect fit. I'm not saying that I don't, but I'm saying all time, they would have gave Dana money, in that sense. If all of this happened, well, let's say that the NIL and the transfer portal and everything, all of the things that are relevant in college athletics today, let's say those became relevant in 2011, and thank God they didn't. Thank God they didn't become relevant in 2007, or we wouldn't sit here and talk about Pat White and Steve Slayton in the same light that we do. I promise you that. But with that being said, if it happened at that time, with the trajectory that the Mountaineer football team was on, I promise you, Dana Holgorsen would have gotten paid and got his assistant coaches paid. And his players paid. So
I'd agree with that.
Mm-hmm. To Brad's point, you at a school like West Virginia, if you're a new coach, well, let's even say that Neil Brown, if he would have started 2 years later at WVU, might have gotten some money more so to do things with his assistant coaches and his players. But having those 2 years under his belt, had to fight what he had to fight through with COVID and all that stuff, and what he was left with Dana. I just don't think that. The transfer portal. Yeah, man. I just think that with what he had to deal with there, he's never going to get that support from the boosters to be able to put him in that light. So I guess my main point to that is just to say that West Virginia, they have people in place that are willing to put the money where it needs to be, but they're not going to put it where it needs to be if it's proven that it's going to be wasted, right?
Yeah. So, and I think that if anything, that's what these coaching hires, looking at Zach Alley, that price tag is big. Oh, and even if it's only people, Yeah, I was saying that's big boy money. That was a big boy move. That was saying, hey, I want to compete with the biggest there is, and I'm going to try to, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah.
Now, like the thing is, you got to go out and execute. You know what I mean? Like it's still got to be good. And I do think that there has been a slow influx of transfer portal, but I think we'll see more in spring.
Okay.
But
Probably, yeah. We've gotten some surprising stuff. I'm sure Cruz is going to bring this up. I didn't realize Jacoby Spells was at
Still on the
question.
team?
Yeah.
Well, I knew he was still on the team, but I didn't know there was a question. I didn't know he had.
I didn't think that he was going to leave either, but he did put out a tweet of him returning, so I guess he just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, I guess I'm
we'll
glad he
take it.
confirmed.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get in the defensive backfield for sure. And we'll get to more of those transfers momentarily, but do want to talk about our season prediction roundtable results briefly here just for a second. And as the guys mentioned there, we bought into the coach speak a little bit, and we probably should have focused a little more and tried to, maintain our optimism, but more on that momentarily. But if you need to maintain your focus, you guys know one of the best ways to do that, the thing that I'm the biggest proponent of course, is Magic Mind. Ever since I started taking it, it's made putting out content easier. It's made my 9 to 5 easier. It's made editing videos easier. Better energy, clearer mind, better focus. And in addition to that, they like to dabble in what they like to call mental wealth, and it's kind of like a savings account. You got to stack it up in there just like you do your bank account. And for your mental wealth, you take your Magic Mind every day. That's going to help you. But also a big component, one of the big pillars there that helps with mental wealth is sleep. And they've also come up with another performance shot that'll help you on that end of things. So you can take your Magic Mind, help you through the day, but you still want to get your 6 to 8 hours of sleep at night. They're going to help you there. That's very vital. They also have something for that now at Magic Mind, and you can get both of these drinks bundled together with our discount here at the CRW. You're going to get your time-released caffeine, your less stress, your great focus from your Magic Mind in the day. You don't have to replace your coffee. You can still have it with it just like I do. You guys know I like my coffee. And then you get your Magic Mind sleep, because energy without sleep is the opposite of productive. Magic Mind Sleeps helps you fall asleep faster, and you'll get a deeper rest. They also donate to mental health charities, so just all kinds of reasons you should try out Magic Mind. I've tried it, and I've loved it. But if you want to try it, you can get 45% off the Magic Mind bundle with our special link here, and that is magicmind.com/countryroadsJAN. That's Country Roads JAN after magicmind.com. Be sure, head over there, get 45% off, get your Magic Mind bundle, take your Magic Mind through the day, use your Magic Mind sleep at night, and you'll perform better all around throughout your weeks there. And we hope that you guys try that out, and it will help you with your focus like we could have used help with our focus during the season prediction roundtable, because all three of us were very optimistic. Steven and I both picked 10-2. Brad picked 9-3. And so what we do is, after we go through each game and predict whether it's a win or loss, after the season's over, I'll go back and take the actual result. And if we predicted a win, then that is a win for us on the win column. If we predicted a loss, that's a loss for us on the loss column. And when we went through and broke it down, I finished 6-6, Steven finished 6-6, and Brad finished 5-7. So not a great performance from either one of us. I struggle to call either one of us a winner there. I don't think me and Steven would tie for the win there when we performed so badly at 6-6. But I mean, I guess if you're being technical, we did. But that's revenge for us, because Brad's won 2 years in a row prior to this year, I think. So we needed that.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brad's got
doing pretty good.
Brad and trivia and these the season prediction roundtables, man. Don't play with my boy.
Hey.
That's right.
Hey,
and I don't have
heart,
on my
baby.
notes all the other things that we predicted, but maybe on a stream or sometime in the near future we'll go back and look at those. But I'm sure they're just as bad, because I know some of my predictions were way off base on some of the predicted leaders I had. So it's probably just
we can get some
embarrassing
little
as well.
clips from the games, like, oh, we're gonna win this game. Like,
I'd like to go back and find
the Curb Your
I'd like to find
Enthusiasm.
the loss. Yeah.
I'd like to find the several different clips before in our preview shows this year where we predicted a win and it was a loss, but also the ones that we predicted, no, we're definitely going to lose this game, and then we come out and we somehow play like a brand new football team that knows how to play. But
yeah, that's the way it's
never could
usually
predict
1 or
anything
2.
this year.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say usually, the season prediction table is what it is, because you're trying to make those predictions, months out on games and stuff, before the season starts. We're definitely more accurate when it comes to our week-to-week episodes where we share our game predictions after breaking down the team, for sure. But the SPR is always fun just because, it's the lead up to the season, and then when you look back on it, it's fun to look back on it in hindsight and be like, damn, we were way off.
Well, it's the only time that we can truly that we're always undefeated, right? So it's always the funnest time to be able to dive into everything. But I think the most exciting thing for this coming off season is not having to worry about if Neil Brown's telling us the truth or not. You know what I mean? Like,
I was going to say Neil Brown could have worked for the KGB for the way that he could get you to believe some stuff, man.
No doubt.
Like I said, 14% Jarrett Dagey will haunt me in my dreams.
Oh,
14% bot.
I love Garrett
4%,
Green.
whatever.
I know that he didn't have the greatest season this year. I'll still always love Garrett Green, but he just was not what they were portraying. And again, I mean, that's not the only one.
They didn't play him the same way, though.
Yeah, that's right. They tried to switch up the entire game plan. That's right.
Yeah, they said never.
A lot of wrong
decisions.
decisions.
Change things.
It's almost like, that's what I said, like when you look back on it, it's almost like they tried to pick out what a weakness was and was like, hey, we're going to sell the hell out of this, make them think it's the best thing since sliced bread. That way when they get into the season and it sucks, we've already conditioned their minds. I don't know. They had weird tactics.
I mean, maybe was it more for like their own players and trying to like build up their confidence and things like that, or was it more for? I think it's more for like going into the Penn State game. Could be. I think going into the Penn State game, he didn't want James Franklin to know that weakness. So, he's going to portray it like he's out there making all these elite throws and everything. So they're not even going to, try to stop the run or whatever. So then we're going to come out and we're going to run the ball down your throat. And he thought that was going to work. That's just an example, but I think that has to have something to do with it.
Yeah. I think I don't know if you guys had a chance to listen to Chris and Mike's podcast where they talked about kind of the Neil Brown era in like retrospective, and they were going back and sharing stories and stuff. But after hearing some of the things that they were sharing, I definitely think that Neil Brown like had a little bit too much control. That was something like when we first got hired that we were excited about, was how down to the detail he was and had his hands in everything. And I think at some point it was kind of his downfall a little bit too much, because maybe he was concerned about the wrong things at times more so than winning football games for sure. But I don't know, a lot of questionable decisions when you look back on it in hindsight, and that's coming from guys that were big Neil Brown proponents for a long time.
From day one, too. I mean,
seriously.
I'm not going to say that.
I would still support him. Yeah, like I would still wish him well wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Like I was going to say, I still don't. I don't hate the guy. I hope he has success wherever he goes.
Right.
It's just it didn't ever pan out the way that we had thought or he thought that it would at WVU eventually. And I think that's why
something didn't work.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there's something that made Shane Lyons and Ren Baker walk in that locker room and say, "No, I'm not firing him today." Right. Well, whenever Ren Baker takes the job, that's what he said. He said, if you see the way this locker room acts and portrays themselves and the culture that's in there, it's a winning football team. Like, that's what you would think, right? And so, like, I don't know. I think that, as I've said many times, I think Neil Brown had a lot of things that make a great football coach. It's just one of those two things. And it could be, I mean, a lot of it could be just wearing too many hats and trying to do too many things, not putting your time in the right spots, I guess.
Yeah, I think it just really, like, not necessarily that he's a bad coach or anything. I think just West Virginia is just a particular type of job, and it's all about fit. You can be, a really good coach and just maybe not fit here, and I think that's kind of what ended up happening with Neil Brown. He just wasn't able to win games here. You just got to find the right fit, and I think that's another reason why you probably turn back, to Rich Rod. It's like you go with what you know versus the unknown, because you could make, what you feel like is another home run hire if you hired someone else, because that's what we thought about Neil Brown, and it could not be a fit again. With you go with Rich Rod, at least hey, he's fit here before. It's not like he's, not going to fit this time. So hopefully that's, the thought process, I'm sure, nonetheless. But in regards to that,
well, I was going to say, look at the Neil Brown Neil Brown. Goodness, we're too much talking about him now. Look at the release that was made on Noah Devine from Rich Rod. Talking about the person he is and like what he's done and stuff. But I think the biggest thing that stood out from that statement to me myself was Noel as a guy that knows what it takes to win at West Virginia, and that's been the biggest thing from day one in 2.0 era, I guess we can call this. From Rich Rodriguez we spent, like I said, we spent the whole last decade and a half listening to Dana Holgorsen talking about it and Neil Brown talking about how it's damn near impossible to win a conference championship, let alone a national championship at somewhere like West Virginia. And from day one, Rich Rodriguez has said that pretty much consistently from his press conference to all of these hires that he's made and the statements that he's dropped. They're committed to bringing a national championship to West Virginia, committed to bringing a national championship to West Virginia, consistently saying that. And for us in the fan base, we've never wavered from that. And I've said that. I mean, I don't know why it's such a ludicrous thought for. I guess because recency bias gets you, and we haven't had that great of a football team consistently for the past decade or so. So I get that. But all time speaking, we are the winningest program in college football history without a national championship. So I've never gotten why it's so crazy of a thought to think that West Virginia could win one. And, we've just not had the coaches that share that same sentiment. And now we finally got one back that truly not only has the belief of it, but has shown that he has the capability to do it. Now, like Brad said earlier, whether he can bring that back and do that again at WVU is still in question. But to me, it's everything that he's done so far and the people that he's put in place has just proven that. So.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, because we were talking about people could say, why are you still talking about Neil Brown? And it's saying you've got to look back to why he wasn't successful when he had such a great culture, great program. Why wasn't he successful?
Yes.
And I agree. I think one of the reasons why I kind of got more on board with Rich Rodriguez is because I think another reason that Neil Brown could have failed is that he had a bit more of a family problem. Like he had a family that was growing up in Morgantown that he was missing games for, that he was having to be a big head coach for and miss out on things. And he just seemed like that's, a big part of his life. And so I think you bring in Rich Rodriguez, who can be a little bit more dedicated to football and isn't going to get blinded by the big lights either. He's been here. He's done that. He's been in bigger places, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to get, shocked when he walks out on the field against Pitt, and say, oh, my God, all this for one game. He's going to punch Pat Narduzzi in the mouth. He's going to say,
might really do
talk
that.
shit. He's going to say, talk shit again, And so that's why I agree where, I look at Rich Rodriguez and I'm like, that's the kind of pick you need here, especially right now when West Virginia's looking for a life raft of, hey, relevant or irrelevant, it's coming in the next 2 years. You need to decide which one it's going to be. And so this is also where I look at the basketball team and how blessed we are for them to be taking the step that they are, because I truly think that we may even be more of a basketball school than we are a football school, and that could carry us going forward. So
thank you, Bradley. Hey, Cruz, you want to share what all your boy Steven here has been saying for the past about 2 months or so?
I just think if you're talking about West Virginia being nationally relevant in a sport, I think we've got a much bigger chance at basketball. I think that doing that might save our football program. So
I want to
no pressure on Darian DeVries.
I want to add this because I don't want people to think that I'm completely shitting on the football program. They have had we've played in a national championship. We went undefeated in 1992. We've had history in football. But all time speaking, when you add in all factors involved, I mean, virtually any direction you look in the NBA right now, you can credit somewhat of something at WVU for that. The NBA logo, Jerry West. Rod Thorne was the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. That's something that Jerry West didn't even do. He's from our hometown in Princeton, West Virginia. Okay?
That's right.
Played at West Virginia. Then went on, after his playing career, which was a pretty daggone good one, went on to be a general manager of a team you might have heard of before called the Chicago Bulls, and drafted a player you might have heard before called Michael Jordan. He was that guy. That's the guy that did that.
My favorite
so
team.
You can credit him for, what side you want to look at, one of the top 2 greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. Okay? And you might say to yourself, wow, that's pretty darn good. Well, then you continue and you look at it, and Jerry West was responsible for bringing Kobe Bryant into L.A., and then, long story short, Kobe had a pretty daggone good career. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. West Virginia, in terms of the NBA, we haven't had a lot of NBA players recently. I mean, Javon Carter and Deuce are doing their thing now. But before that, it had been a long time since we had a player making a name for themselves in the NBA. So I think that's a lot of the reason that people don't give that credit there. But I think in those aspects, if you look at those aspects and look at all factors involved, I've always considered West Virginia a bit more of a basketball school than a football school. But realistically speaking, with everything that's happened, we're a both school. I mean, really, truly.
Yeah, we got one of those teams, potential to be
one of the only programs that is good at both.
Right.
And I was about to say, because I could counter, what you said about on the basketball side, how West Virginia kind of has their hands and everything with what you detailed there. You could say the same in football, especially nowadays, because you look, not only used to only be college, but now you look in the NFL, what's everyone running? They're running the RPO, where you put the ball into the running of the the ball into the belly of the running back and fake it. Who created the basis of that offense? Rich Rodriguez. So, I mean, it's West Virginia literally has their, there's always a West Virginia connection, as people say. But I will give you guys one thing. You guys know I've always been more of a WVU football fan. Not that I don't like WVU basketball. I just like WVU football first, and WVU basketball wasn't the first basketball team I liked. You guys know I grew up liking UNC because I lived in North Carolina, but that's a whole other story. I won't digress on. I've told it here on the podcast plenty. But I think the one thing I will say is that nowadays I definitely feel like West Virginia probably has a much better chance to win a national championship in basketball than they do in football. I'd give you that for sure. I think, not to say that we can't do it in football like we talked about. We do believe that we can. I just think with the way that it's set up, you can get a team that can win. You can get a few players and win, 5-6 straight games in the NCAA tournament. You've seen even mid-majors go on deep tournament runs. It can be done. Whereas in the football side, we haven't really seen that. Even you look now, the Final Four is kind of the big-name schools, even with it going to a 12-team playoff. So, as much as it pains me to say, back when the BCS was going on, that was maybe one of West Virginia's best chances in football, because all you had to do was, finish 1 or 2, then you're in the national championship game already, and all you got to do is win 1 game. Versus in today's day and age, you're going to have to win 4 or 5 games, or 3 or 4 games rather, to be able to win a national championship in football, which would be difficult with playing a lot of the big name schools. I'm not saying it can't be done. West Virginia can do it, but I think there's a much clearer and probably easier path in basketball. So while I do, think West Virginia is both, there's definitely probably a more clear path for a national title in basketball.
Well, I would even argue that it's not necessarily an easier path. You look at Big 12 basketball. Not only are we competing in like a conference in general, like we're competing in some of the best basketball we could be competing against.
The very best, yeah.
And so like even like being relevant in the Big 12 at this point is just, a massive aspect. And winning the Big 12 championship in one of these years, in one of the toughest conferences, that we have, it would be incredible.
And who's the number 1 team in that conference right now? Was it?
I think that West Virginia is 2-0. I think
something like that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely agree with that too, Brad.
Good vibes.
But also with the football side of that,
it's not easy. We've just got a hell of a basketball team, and potential basketball team, like just potential in that.
Because
aspect.
we got a hell of a coach.
Yeah. What to your sentiment,
funding.
Cruz? I think what even screams more so to that is like how hard it would be in football. If you watch that ASU and Texas game, I think it was very evident of how hard it's going to be for a team like that to win a national championship in the current age.
Everything's stacked against you.
Everything's stacked against you. That was a complete travesty of a call. Not going to go off on a tangent about it, but
100%. 100% agree. But let's shift gears here a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming roster that we're trying to build here in the Rich Rod 2.0 era. We talked a little bit about the coaching staff and such, and let's talk about the roster, though, because we do have some pieces that have announced they're returning. So let's pull up this 2025 roster tracker, and if you guys don't follow us on YouTube, be sure to do that. I'll continue to put roster updates as more players enroll. We're going to have freshmen coming in. We're going to have some of the transfer signings coming in, and we'll talk some more about those transfer signings. But we have Nico that has announced he's confirmed to return. Same goes for Jaheim White. So big to get both those guys back on offense. Rodney Gallagher has also confirmed he will be returning as well. Offensive line is a little bit thin with what we've lost, which actually Lucas Austin has hit the portal as well. Forgot to take him off of here. So we're down to 4 scholarship offensive linemen, but we do have 1 commit transfer already. We've got plenty of freshmen coming in, so there are reserves on the way, but I expect more movement there. But on the defensive side, what I really wanted to highlight was a couple of guys that recently announced they're returning. Abina Onwuka, who was previously going to enter the portal, has announced he's going to come back. So good to get him back. Eddie V is going to come back for his final season. He's announced on social media. And then at cornerback, one of the big ones is getting KK Tarnu back. And I do have him listed as corner instead of safety because that's where he played in Zach Alley's defense at Jack State in 2023. And he's going to be playing for Zach Alley again. So I'm kind of expecting he may play cornerback again. But he's able to come back despite previously being out of eligibility because the court ruling that the JUCO years do not count against NCAA eligibility currently. So KK Tarnu able to use 1 more year of eligibility and will return for a final season at WVU. And as we mentioned earlier, Jacoby Spells also announced he would return. So that's kind of where we're sitting roster-wise. But, guys, any thoughts on the roster as it sits currently or any of the players that have announced they're returning? Who are you most excited about? Anything you got there?
I'm excited to see my boy Asani Redwood stay. Talk about an aggressive defense. I think that he's somebody that could get a little bit more active. Because to me, when I'm looking at these things as the new coaches come in, is what happens to the talent that we have on the team that we have felt has been there. Jacoby Spells being one, Rodney Gallagher being one, people like that. Just seeing like what their progression can look like and how much different they look when spring ball comes.
Yeah.
Are those people noticeably different?
Yeah, I think so too. I think with what we've seen, the product that you've seen of the offense that Rich Rod has, not just at West Virginia, but literally every single place else that he's been, even at Michigan with the way that they struggled, they had great offense. Denard Robinson was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
With that being said, I think Rodney Gallagher will be used in a way that it might even surpass what we thought that he could do. I mean, we've all been very high up on Rodney since he got recruited, and rightfully so. I just don't think he was ever put in the right positions. You can only run so much of a sweep play before the other team starts to key on that and realize what you're doing.
Well,
over time.
You can only play so many snaps
against.
Yeah, I was just saying you can only play so many snaps as a cornerback against Penn State.
Right.
Like what?
Right.
Like,
well, and I even said that
his
going into the
spot.
season. Like, not everybody is Travis Hunter, and it's awesome that Travis can do that. And I think that he was. I might people might come for me for this one, but I thought that he was the best player in college football this year. I thought Ash Gianti was the greatest running back, but I thought Travis Hunter demonstrated several times that he was the best college football player in the country this year. But with that being said, that's what makes him so great. Not everybody can do what Travis Hunter does. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just because Rodney can play on that side of the ball, I'm sure that he can. He's an athlete. He probably played some there in high school. But that's one of the things that I guess I would hold against Neil Brown is trying to do things like that instead of using what you said was a great, deep, talented defensive backs room, and then turning around and using one of your best recievers to go over there and play the ball and get too much physicality done. Yeah, but with that being said, I think Kakora Tarnu is him coming back. I mean, I know you didn't see a whole lot out of him last year, but that's huge. That is absolutely huge.
Well, even if not just for the experience that he has with Rich Rod and Zach Alley, he can help even coach up some of the other guys on the defense probably.
Well, yeah, true that. But another thing is, you mentioned Dasani Redwood. I'm glad that guy right there is going to be great for that 3-3-5 stack. I think that's one of those bodies that's going to be good. I think one of the other ones that I wish that we could get and wish had more eligibility would be Fatorma Molba.
Oh,
I swear, perfect. I think that he would flourish in that defense.
He would have been perfect.
I think so,
that'd have been great. That'd have been great. But speaking of players we're
Eddie
trying to
back,
get,
I think in that position he might be.
Yeah, for his 18th year of college ball, it seems like.
Let's talk about some of the players that West Virginia is trying to get. Of course, we pull up the transfer portal tracker here for those watching on the YouTube side. Of course, the transfer out list there for West Virginia pretty much remains the same. Most recently, a handful of offensive linemen, and then you've had some players announce their destinations, those being Will Dixon going to Rhode Island, T.J. Crandall to Oregon State, Josiah Trotter to Missouri, Sullivan Weedman to UMass, Thomas Remack to Virginia Tech, Kyle Altuner to Virginia Tech, following Matt Moore, who's now the offensive line coach there, C.J. Donaldson to Ohio State, Johnny Williams to Missouri, Day Farmer to UCF, and then most recently, of course, Hudson Clement to Illinois. But West Virginia has been working on getting some transfers in of their own, and they've had a few of those, even one that just committed right prior to us starting this recording. And like I said, by the time this comes out, maybe there's news of more, and I hope that there is. There's been plenty in on visits, and we'll talk about those momentarily. But as far as the guys that are already committed and coming into the fold, we've got defensive back Jordy Scruggs from South Alabama. Was very highly sought after. Colorado was after him as well. Man Singleton, a wide receiver from Eastern Michigan. Walter Youngbear, one of my favorites in the class so far, an offensive lineman from Tulsa. And as we talked about, we need offensive linemen. Then we get two state natives returning. Gerard Bowie coming back from Martinsburg, transferring in from Jack State, also played at Concord in the past. Jacob Barrick also is from Martinsburg. He's coming in from Jack State. And then most recently, we had these three skill position players. Jalen Henderson, transferring in from the SEC from Texas A&M, probably maybe the transfer I'm most excited about currently. And then we got Cyrus Straw, a wide receiver from Youngstown State, who's also a state native, came from Parkersburg South and out of high school. And we recently added running back L.J. Turner from Catawba College. there at the Division II ranks, and I want to tell people that are kind of thumbing their nose up at this one to not forget Rich Rod took a running back from Limestone, and he was number 3 in the nation last year in rushing yards, over 20 touchdowns, and L.J. Turner's film looks great. And then, as I mentioned, a commitment just came in. West Virginia get another Power Conference transfer just before we started this recording. Ashton Woods committing to the Mountaineers. 3 years of eligibility remaining.
Nice. That's got to be good coming from – they had a pretty good defense last year too. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think he was a 4-star in last year's class too. So really high ceiling and multiple years of eligibility. So you like that high upside on that one. Needing to bring in some linebackers after losing Trotter and Lathan. But that's where we stand thus far with transfer commits, guys. I mean, out of those, who's your favorite, the standout there, or some names that really stick out to you? Who do you like there, Brad?
I mean, you got to be looking at Walter Youngbear. I mean, right? Like, I know you already said that's your favorite, but what a name. But in a big hulking dude, offensive lineman, which is a desperate need. Looks nice. Love to be pulling Jacob Barrick back. He's looked good. Glad to see him come back with us. And then, yeah, like you said, Jalen Henderson. I think it's good to get some competition in there. Yeah. See what that's going to look like.
I think for me, man, to be honest, it's hard not to be excited about every single name on this list. I mean, goodness gracious, we talked a lot about Cyrus Trowell, coming from Youngstown State. That's why he's got some great tape on him. Jalen Henderson
already scored 2 touchdowns on Pitt. That's what I love about him.
Right. Jalen Henderson. I mean, Cruz has been doing his little comparisons of how he is in the game and stuff, and yeah, I love that.
I got the notes right here.
Listen, as hard as I was on those ratings at the beginning of the year, I think if anything's proven this year, the EA ratings are accurate. Okay, like they
were pretty accurate.
I was very one-sided because I was like, well, West Virginia's defense is not going to be this bad. Well, they were that bad.
They knew something we didn't.
And then also with the Notre Dame, my friends would play with Notre Dame all the time. I'm like, there's no way Notre Dame's going to be this dominant. Guess what? Notre Dame is that dominant, and they have a great chance to win the national championship this year. So with that being said, like that's how accurate those ratings have been. And Jalen Henderson has definitely got a very dual quarterback type of ratings, and he's proven that, and he's exciting to watch. I think, like you said, he'll give Nico some great competition, but I think more so than anything, we are going to have quite of a stud of a QB room going into this spring with Khalil Wilkins, Jalen Henderson, and Nico. I mean, that's going to be a battle. I know who I want to win, but I hope that the best man wins. And then I think the name, though, that stands out to me more than anything on this whole entire list, I think you made a good point, Brad, about needing offensive linemen. That's true. I think we needed somebody to help share that role with Jaheim. I think that's just the nature of the beast with how college like as Cruz has said before, I think that's just how good offenses operate this in today's age, is having 2 viable running backs. The interesting thing with it, though, is L.J. Turner is also a speed back, while Jaheim White is also a speed back. So you're going to have 2 kind of shifty, quick backs back there, and it's kind of being left up to in the air if we're going to have one of those bulldozing big backs again like CJ was. But even still, so I think that the tape on L.J. Turner, regardless who his competition was in that tape, I mean, that kid is lightning fast, and I can't wait to watch him. But like I said, all these names are exciting in their own space.
Agreed. Yeah, L.J. Turner, his film looks great if you watch it. Like Steven said, does have the breakaway speed. Had over 1,200 yards rushing and didn't even play in 3 of the team's game because of an injury that he had late in the season. So impressive numbers there at the Division II ranks. And as Steven mentioned, the stats on the quarterbacks there, and I do have the notes on those. Jalen Henderson on College Football 25's 85 speed, 84 agility, 86 acceleration. So it does bring a little bit to the speed game there, and he does have nice legs. Similar size to Nico, too. He's 6'3", 220. Nico's 6'2", 223. Like we said, both lefties. So is Khalil Wilkins. And as far as what the game thinks, they're both 78 overall. So, I think that job's going to be up for grabs. From what I've heard, Jalen Henderson was guaranteed a starting spot at Liberty. And if he turned that down to come to WVU, he must think he has a chance in the QB competition. So that's going to continue to be a storyline throughout the offseason, and one we'll keep an eye on. And I think either way that it shakes out, West Virginia will be in good hands.
Yeah. Like I said, I know who I want to win. That's obviously just on the bias of what we've seen and the product of what we've seen him play like on the field in Nico. But with that being said, I mean, for the team, you just want the best man to win, the best guy overall. Which
show me
I love Rich
more
Rodriguez.
Hard edge than throwing a game-winning ball with vomit on it.
True that. But also to that point, Nico went undefeated as a starter in the Neil Brown era. So as bad as those teams were, and as much as those offense struggled at times, Nico was able to get the job done and show what kind of player he was. So he has proven a little bit to me. But with that being said, as much as I love Rich Rodriguez and him being back, he hasn't been the best evaluator of quarterback talent at times. Let's not forget that Pat White wouldn't be in the space that he is, talked about the way that he is, if Adam Bednarik didn't go down with that shoulder injury in the Virginia Tech game, and then again also in the Louisville game. So let's hope that he makes the right decision after that. I hope so. I think so. Yeah.
Because after that he had a great string of QBs after that. So I think after that he was like, okay, I just need to go with the explosive guy.
Yeah, just go with that guy.
Just go with that guy. Just go with that guy.
It also could have been Pat White was young at the time too. He was a freshman.
He was redshirt freshman.
Redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we do got to keep that in mind as well for sure. But definitely, excited about a lot of these transfers West Virginia's bringing in and seeing what Rich Rod can do with him. And this is only the tip of the iceberg, guys. We're going to bring in several more over the next couple of weeks as the spring semester starts here in short order. And as Brad mentioned earlier, we'll bring even more in after spring ball in that next transfer portal window. But as far as other names you can look at as potential guys West Virginia may add, let's scroll down here to the upcoming visitors list. Now, some of these guys have already visited, a couple that I know of. Jordan Walker, CJ Doggett have already visited. Of course, a few of the guys that committed there recently have already visited. Some of these guys were on campus today that we're recording this. Some are in the next few days, but the spring semester starts in the next about week and a half or so. So a lot of these guys are going to be making decisions, but this is a long list of visitors that have either came into West Virginia or will be coming in. So be on the lookout for these guys. Like we always like to say, once they make it into campus to Morgantown, then they're always on commitment watch. I think West Virginia got a lot of areas of need here throughout these. We know about the defensive back needs, the line needs, both offense and defense. Need some blockers at tight end. You see that on the list. And, of course, multiple receivers as well. West Virginia needs some guys on kind of be outside receivers. They brought in a lot of slot types, so we're kind of looking that way. Maybe Troy Stellato from Clemson. He's kind of near the top of my list as one of my standout guys, I think. But what about you, Brad? If you look at this list, who's one of your favorites that you'd like to see West Virginia maybe have a chance at landing?
Yeah, no, I don't know too much about any of these guys, so I'm automatically going to schools. And a linebacker from Texas sounds pretty stout, and so does a tight end from Iowa. So, and a DB from Miami, we know they got some lockdown cornerbacks down there. Jordan loves him some lockdown cornerbacks from Miami.
That's right, getting some lockdown corners.
What worries me here, though, is the lack of offensive line. It doesn't seem like there's any in there yet, though I feel like that's a position that probably doesn't have a lot of movement. Or as much as some other ones. So that's really just kind of like what I'm eyeballing here.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely a big need, and it's something they're going to continue to target, I think. I think that they're hoping that a lot of guys will hit after the spring window and maybe be able to get some O-linemen then. But I can add here, even though he's not on this list yet, I expect him to be in the near future, and that's Robbie Martin, former Huntington offensive lineman, was at NC State, hit the portal. West Virginia is in contact with him and trying to set up a visit, so he may be added recently. So that's one offensive lineman, but like I said, we need multiple. So hopefully
and I thought I would see more
Oklahoma
there. People, too. Like more, because I know there's been quite a few Oklahoma DB linebackers and defensive players that had hit the portal. So to not see any of them is kind of sad.
Yeah, the linebacker
surprised
that
as
entered
well.
the portal the next day, I thought there would be more on him.
Yeah, he ended up UCF. I think he wanted to get back home closer to Florida, so he committed to UCF a couple of days ago. But nonetheless, I think we do have some good linebackers that we're after. But I am surprised as well. We did not target more Oklahoma players. There were several in the portal. I think some had already kind of made their decision and narrowed down their choices by the time that Zach Alley left, save for the one we just talked about, which did end up at UCF. But as far as the prospects that we know of, West Virginia targeting, Stephen, who's kind of high on your wish list?
There's several guys on this list that get me excited, but I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think Ethan Head, man. I'm truly hoping that he commits to us. I watched a little bit of highlight tape on him. That kick, he's got a boot on him, man. And most likely, if he does commit to us, he will be it'll be most likely our kickoff specialist and our field goal guy. And I don't know if he's done it in a game, but it's been reported he can kick 70-yard field goals. So anybody can do that is, oh my gosh. Which, I mean, that's, like I said, that's just the nature of the beast nowadays as a kicker. I mean, you see these social media kickers getting big that's not even playing in the league. that only influences those players to get better, over time. So, you're seeing some crazy stuff be done. I think it was just a few weeks ago in the NFL we've seen an actual 71-yard field goal made.
That's crazy.
Jim Harbaugh free kick, but still.
That's
I mean, it's easier to make a field goal if you don't have anybody rushing the daggone thing. That's true, but
yeah, but still impressive nonetheless.
Still, that's an impressive leg to have.
For sure. So, a lot of talented guys, and definitely West Virginia in need of a kicker, in need of some special teams help. We're in need of a long snapper as well. Ollie Straw is returning, and then I do want to add, in regards to that, Cam Thompson here would probably be a kick return specialist. He's one of the faster guys in the portal. That's kind of what they're looking at him for. So as far as special teams potential additions, but a long list of visitors there, and a lot of guys West Virginia is targeting, and as more of them commit and come in, we'll continue to update the transfer status of things. We'll continue to release podcast episodes weekly here over the next few weeks, as we'll have news on coaches, roster, transfers, all kinds of stuff that we'll be chatting about. And something else we can chat about, guys, we'll throw in here at the tail end is, how about WVU basketball? I know we kind of teased it a little bit, but 11-2 currently, 2-0 in the Big 12 after taking down Kansas, getting their first win ever at Allen Fieldhouse, and then coming back home and handling Oklahoma State by 19, and doing both those things without Tucker DeVries and without Amani Hansberry against Kansas. Did get to see him return against Oklahoma State, but how surprised are you at the 11-2 start? How far do you think this team can go? How are you feeling about this West Virginia basketball team, Brad?
Oh, I'm feeling excellent, man. Like I said, it's been fun to watch. Javon Small is just a joy, man, and it is lovely to watch. And just guys out there playing sound basketball. Oklahoma State, when it started getting a little sloppy and a little nasty, it's like all of a sudden they're just like, hey, push it, just kick it out to the corner, hit a couple of threes. Yeah, we're winning this game. Put it behind us and move on. And that was just like something. I caught my breath when we went under 20-point lead, because I was like, Mountaineers will mountaineer sometimes.
Yeah.
And so to see them just come out and be like, okay, cut the crap, hit a couple corner threes, put the game away, was just very, very satisfying. It's got me. It's good sound basketball, and this is only the year one. This is the start of.
Let's hope it's just year one, and it's not. Well, this season went so great, so now you got 15 blue bloods calling for Darian DeVries. That's why I'm hoping we extend that guy now.
Yeah, and I don't think Darian DeVries is that kind of guy. He was looking for somewhere where he could build it and create it at. If he was looking for that kind of move, he would have left Drake a lot earlier. So,
true that.
That's a good point.
True that. That is a great point. That is a great point. I think I share a lot of those same sentiments when it comes. I mean, for
we could
the entire time
basketball.
I think so too. I truly believe that, and I've believed that for a long time. But for the entire time that I've watched WVU basketball, and I've been a fan of them. And this goes all the way back to the John Beilein era, and through the Bob Huggins era. We had great teams. I mean, obviously we went to the Final Four one year under Bob Huggins. We had great teams. That team specifically was a great offensive basketball team. I mean, it was no secret. Deshaun Butler could shoot. John Flowers could shoot. I mean, all these guys. We had guys that would go out there and shoot the lights out. But with that being said, one of the most impressive things about this team specifically is their ability to go out there and you make a couple threes, and then you got the crowd on the edge of their seat waiting for that heat check three. You know what I'm talking about. That shot that really gets the crowd into it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, West Virginia seems to hit that every single daggone time. Every single time. And they did that again on Saturday. I mean, Javon Small came down the floor and got hot, and I can't tell you how many times I heard Tony say, and Javon Small for a heat check. He got it. You know what I mean? That ignites you as a fan. There's something about that ignites you and makes you believe as a fan that we could really do anything out there. Especially, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, having the team that we've had and having the season we've had so far is one thing. But to be able to do that with your top scorer going down, then your third top scorer going down, and then Javon Small's probably sitting there thinking to himself, or what we as fans were like, man, we're hoping Javon can, carry that load a little bit, and he does. But the beautiful thing about it is, you don't just have Javon Small stepping up. You got Jonathan Powell stepping up. You got Amani. I keep getting. What is this? Andre.
Yeah, Ed Andre.
Yeah, a lot of new faces on this team. I get names mixed up a lot, but that's just the top three. You had several guys step up in that game versus Oklahoma State the other day when me and Cruz talked about it. It's a potential letdown game. And they go out there and they play one of the most complete, impressive games that they've played all season. And if you've watched them all season, that is absolutely saying something. So I just mean, as much as I loved Bob Huggins and loved John Beeline and I have always loved this team. This is, I mean, I'm trying not to be over dramatic about it, but it truly is one of the most impressive, fully put together basketball teams I think I've ever witnessed at WVU. I mean, that just includes offense, rebounding, defense. I mean, all factors involved that you need to be a great team. They have it. I mean, if you've watched them play and you watch, I haven't watched a whole lot of other teams outside of like Duke and UNC and the main ones that get put on TV all the time. I watch a lot of them. But what I have watched the most of besides WVU basketball this year is Big 12 basketball. And, you know, we've mentioned that, and I still stand by that. I think the Big 12 basketball conference right now in today's age, and has been for several years in my opinion, is the best basketball conference we've ever seen in college basketball. And from everything that I've seen, West Virginia is the best team in that conference right now. And so I can't say enough about them, man. I can't say enough about them. I can't say enough about Darian DeVries' game plans that he has every game, which always seems to surprise us and how well they're put together. Yeah, any opponent. It's one thing to go down to Nassau and have a string of 3 games. You know, that's one thing, and we've seen West Virginia teams have a string of great games before in tournaments. But to be able to do that and come around and go out to Fog Allen Fieldhouse, do the things you do out there, and then come home for a potential letdown game and play as well as you do against Oklahoma State. I think
now you got some energy for a bit of a tuner-up against Arizona. Maybe you catch them a second time, and you're 3-0 in Big 12 play.
Well, that's what I said. You know, you've already lost to them once or beat them once, so you got to think they're coming in here with revenge on their mind. So, I mean, every game is going to be a test, but up to this point, I can't help but feel like West Virginia has proven themselves as a legit basketball team, I guess I'll say. Because, you know, for a few games, it should have been ranked after that tournament, in my opinion, but it's just me.
Hey, they will be now.
They better be now. They should have been after the Kansas game. I can't believe it took until after Oklahoma State for them to. But then again, like, keep us that way all season, and then come tournament time, we'll just beat everybody.
That's right. I am all for that. But, yeah, it's been super impressive, man. I think that Darian DeVries right now is looking like a potential Big 12 Coach of the Year. And I even saw, you know, on the national broadcast, I didn't get a chance to watch, but I saw the picture floating around because I listened to that game against Oklahoma State. The CBS broadcast was discussing, you know, National Player of the Year candidates and had Javon Small on a list of about 5 or 6 guys. So that's the type of year he's having as well. And when you got a coach that's up for a potential Coach of the Year candidate and a player that's up for a potential Player of the Year candidate, you got a team that can really be dangerous. And West Virginia could be a contender in this conference. And as we mentioned earlier, it's probably the best conference in college basketball. So if you're a contender in that conference, you're a contender nationally. And if West Virginia is able to do that in year one with a completely rebuilt roster with not a ton of depth, just imagine what could, you know, hold for the future of the Darian DeVries era. It's super exciting for sure.
Yes, very, very bright future. And, you know, like I've said before, how much can things change within a matter of months? Within a matter of 1 month, if that. You know what I mean? Like, we're sitting here at the beginning of December, and we're like, I hope basketball team can keep up what they've been doing, man. I hope we find a good football coach, man. This stuff is depressing as hell. And then in a matter of just a few weeks, we're all back and juiced up, ready to go for next season and the rest of this basketball season. So, I mean, that is something to credit this administration for, I think. Can't say enough about the athletic department.
Hey, vibes are high and the piss is hot.
Piss is hot. Piss boiling, baby.
Scorching.
That's boiling piss, baby. That's right. But no, man, that's right. I can't say enough good things about it, man. It's really been super impressive. It's been fun to watch. You know, this basketball team, just the way they play, even is fun to watch, and I've enjoyed it a lot. Just like I've enjoyed a lot of the building of this football roster this offseason that we've had a chance to cover, and the coaching staff, and we'll continue to cover the news on that as it comes out. But having talked a little football and a little basketball, gentlemen, I guess we'll get ready to wrap up episode 214 here. But any final thoughts before we do that?
Yeah, Maisie has a thought.
Hey, there
She's got some thoughts.
The cat
got
has
some thoughts
to speak.
she'd like to share.
The cat's got Brad's tongue.
But yeah, no, man. It's just it's a time to be a Mountaineer fan, and yeah, basketball. Keep your eyes glued to that, man. Don't turn away from them because they're going to be spicy for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Indeed.
Yep.
Steven, what about you, man?
No, again, I'll say, you know, we touched on it earlier, but you know, with everything, with all football team doing good, basketball team doing good, the women's basketball team absolutely doing just as well, if not maybe even a little bit better. And sometimes because they had a team down 50-16 the other day at halftime. I believe it was UCF. So not just those two things in our athletic department are doing good. We've got some good soccer. We've got good men and women's basketball. If you hadn't heard, we also got a rifle team that's pretty darn good too. So
Hey, that's right.
so,
Always.
Just all factors involved. Can't say enough about how proud I am to be a WVU football or WVU fan in the current age.
Here, here.
Which is great to have that feeling back.
Well said, brother. We suffered for a bit, but I think that's going to pay off tenfold because times are about to be really bright. Both basketball teams performing well, and we like the way that things are shaping up here on the football side. Be it the roster, we think they're going to bring in some really good pieces, and we really like a lot of the staff as it's coming together as well with the money behind it that we were hoping to see. So that's kind of how we're feeling here, and we appreciate you guys tuning in to episode 214. If we've talked, coaches, transfers, roster, and even a little basketball. But whether you watched on YouTube, which if you did that, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. That helps us a ton with the algorithm. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Or if you listen on the audio side, which you can find on any podcast platform, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, you name it, leave us a rating if you would. That helps us there on that side. And shout out to our friends over at WVSportsNow.com for hosting our episodes there as well. Last thing I want to remind you guys of is do yourself a favor. Do your mental health a favor. Get the Magic Mind bundle with the 40% off at our link there, magicmind.com/countryroadsjan. Get that bundle there where you get the Magic Mind shot and the Magic Mind sleep shot. Can't recommend it enough, and we appreciate Magic Mind as well, just like we appreciate all you guys tuning into this one. For my co-hosts Steven and Brad, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.
If you really want to know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those